Hello, welcome back to part 2 of Fred's Holiday Radio Go Box. So in part 1 I showed you the wooden support structure being made, and here in part 2 we're going to dress it up with some of this Scotch 3M carbon effect vinyl. Now I've used this before, and normally I would heat this up sort of in a very low oven to start with to sort of make sure that it's pliable and the adhesive is active. But as you saw, it's been so warm today I've just left it out in the sun for a little while. Using it is quite simple. You just have to very carefully sort of place it down, make sure you get out all the air bubbles and things. That's why it helps if you warm this material up first. It is a permanent adhesive, so you only get one attempt at this. And here it is with just some of the apertures roughly cut out. And it's a nice effect, isn't it, this carbon? I really like this vinyl. I've used it on a few other projects before. I think it's great.
Well people, things have moved on, as you can see. A typical testing mess. An engineer's nightmare. It's a real Fred in the shed bodge, isn't it? But what I'm doing here is just basically working out the audio feeds from the little 2 meter radio there, running it round into that Chinese lapel, or lapel, whatever you want to call it, amplifier. I haven't connected up the primary transformer yet. And then testing the speakers, which are on the side, which I know it's a bit, it's a bit of an overkill. I know that you've got these this two-way speaker system here, but that's the speaker that comes with the radio, which is actually quite fine. It puts out quite a nice louder audio, but it's not the audio I want. I want a sort of like a deeper kind of audio, if that makes sense. So this is what I'm doing today, and it's quite difficult actually. Try and find a blank channel on the PMR audio to test it. I keep interrupting people's conversations. It's quite bad, but I think I've got one anyway. So I'm just going to put the camera down and I'll do a quick audio test. Audio test. Audio test. Audio test. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Audio test. So as you heard, that it's putting out quite a nice little bit of audio through that amplifier, and bearing in mind that's just an open box at the moment. Once that's all eventually sandwiched in there, all jammed in there, you'll have like the acoustics as well of the box itself. So yeah, it's getting there, and it's all going to take. So just starting to build up the audio switch selectors now. Yeah, it's not going too bad. It's always starts getting a little bit fiddly once you start getting sort of quite so many wires. But I mean, the best thing about Homebrew is that you can design something to do exactly the tasks that you want, which is not something that you can go out and purchase. It will never do exactly what you want. Of course, the downside is it does all start getting quite kind of complicated and quite messy with the wiring. So it's difficult to try and sort of keep that all nice and neat. But that's all part of the fun, isn't it? That's what we enjoy, supposedly. Anyway, I'm cracking on.
So building up the 12-volt power transformer now, just sort of get that fitted in. But things don't always go as you plan, do they? And one really tricky little problem is to get that little matcher in, the one with the front fascia is angled, because it makes it so awkward fitting it into the box, and I've had to cut a little edge of the top shelf away. And yeah, I could have gone and bought one that would have probably fitted a bit better, but the whole idea is to try and use up some of the old equipment that I've had knocking about for years. And likewise with brackets, I'm not going to go out and buy aluminium brackets, so I managed to find this one knocking about in the garage. I think it was from a heater, and then the rest I'm going to make them myself just from a sheet of old aluminium that I salvaged from work. And it's nothing fancy here, just going to sort of cut it up into strips and sort of bend it as I like. I mean, of course none of this will actually be seen, it'll all be inside the box. And but as long as it's functional, as long as it holds everything securely in place, that's what we're after. That's often the case, the amount of time you can spend sort of like in the old days going around sort of things like DIY stores looking for tiny sort of brackets and stuff like this. And nowadays, you'd be on eBay searching and stuff. You quite often you can make it yourself. Yeah, it's not going to look as professional, I know, but if it's not seen, then why not? So with everything crammed into this box so tightly, one of the problems I'm going to have is ventilation. So as you can see here, I've made as many holes as I possibly can, and grills and fans to try and keep the air circulating, to keep everything as cool as possible. Now, as for the small mini SMA antenna mount, which will take the same Bofang antennas that I use on Sean's radio, I really thought I'd found a solution, one of these little tiny mag mount antenna mounts you get on eBay. When it arrived in close inspection, it's absolute crap, absolute rubbish, so in the end I had to chuck that away. I went ahead and decided to make my own mount. Now that proved quite fiddly in itself, and I ended up making a whole separate video here on the channel. You can go and look at that if you like. Basically, it was just made out of a sheet of 3mm copper, one of these surface mount SMA connectors. Now I find it really tricky to get hold of one of these, and I ended up buying this one, but it had a tiny, absolutely tiny connector for the main sort of positive feed for the antenna wire. So even after I spent an extortionate amount of time manufacturing this copper plate and the mount, I found it really difficult trying to solder the coaxial cable onto the very small post that was protruding from the SMA surface mount. But after a couple of attempts, which did involve me to walk away and drink a few glasses of wine to try and sort of calm down, I did manage it, and I did, build a reasonably good kind of like connection here. I think if it was just static and I wasn't continually changing antennas, this would have been fine. But as you can see later on in the video, this didn't quite work out the way I wanted. However, moving on. Now, when I used that little 70cm radio on the PMR band, what I'll be doing, I'll kind of have it on a scan function. I'll just have it sort of monitoring the PMR bands when I'm down at the holiday park. So I decided to fit a better quality speaker than the tiny one that comes in the radio itself. To be able to hear that speaker, I just decided to make my own grill here and just drilled a few holes in the side of the box and touched it up with black paint. And it actually came out pretty well. So next it was back to the radio itself, and now I just need to connect everything to the power supply. So other than hardwire everything in, I decided to use some of these heavy duty spade connectors. And this of course gives me the option, I can always add extra things in the box if I need to, if they need power, which I probably will modify this in the future. And for added safety I decided to leave the inline fuse. Then it was on to more audio work. Now I want 2 headphone sockets in the front of this radio, because along with a pair of headphones I want also to connect a digital dictaphone. As these sockets are non-cancelling, I'll also need to fit a switch.
And all the beer and wine, well, it would have flowed from those fountains you see over there in the
materials. Songs of lament for construction projects that were never finished, and songs of regret for the great chisel again. Lucy found Dan hidden at the far end of the garden, sitting on a low wall under the oleanders.
So for a little bit of homebrew, that worked pretty well. And next thing was that little monitor speaker I was talking about. Just need to secure that in the case with a couple of speed clips. So now for the first time, it's time to connect some power to the beast.
Okay, now the way I've wired this switch is that I've wired it directly to be illuminated as soon as the power switched on, regardless of whether the actual switch is on or off. Just mainly I just want to be quite aware that there's power going to the unit. I'm going to put an LED indicator in the front of the unit to let me know when the 12 volt power supply is on. So that will come on as soon as I flick the power on, but obviously no voltage will be supplied to the transformer, but I'll know I've got power on all the time. So butterflies in the stomach time, moment of truth now. For the first time we're going to switch on the mains. So hopefully when I switch on we'll have 0 power there. Oh, there it goes. Yep, 0 volts. And as we come around the back here, that light should be on. Yep, it is, telling me that that's armed and ready to go. And then just, oh, the moment of truth. Switching it on. Stand by for the bang. 3, 2, 1. Oh, shit. No. Nothing burning. Okay, so don't want to touch that, but that means the power supply is okay, and I should be looking, I'm hoping to get about 13.5 volts out of this, and there it is, 13.68, that's fine. Slightly over 13, just come up 13.7, slightly over, but I can live with that. And wow, everything seems to be okay. There's no smoke. Oh, it's always a bit iffy, isn't it, when you first switch something on. Right, I've got the wiring okay. Well, it appears this SMA antenna mount strikes again, because when I'm turning the antenna here to unscrew it from the radio, as you can see that, how do you make that out? it's putting a lot of strain. It's turning that rather weak joint that I made, and I've got a real bad fear that it would have snapped it. So I got a feeling that joint's failed. It's going to be a real pain, isn't it? So I don't think I'm out of the woods yet. I think I'm going to have to look at something else for this joint here. Definitely.
So this was the solution that I found. This was something on eBay. It's actually a satellite connector and a satellite cable, which is 70 ohms. I wouldn't use 50, but I just got to sort of attach it to that copper plate there. But I think it's a lot more solid. It's a much better solution, and I think it's going to be much better long term. So here it is inside the copper plate. Yeah, I would have liked to have got a new copper plate, really, made it a little bit neater, but maybe I'm being a little bit picky. So I think that's going to work. I'm going to also do a little copper braid there just to earth the antenna out. And here it is fitted in the box, and I must admit it is a much better solution. It's a lot more sturdier, quite a nice little fit there, and the copper braid going to the earthing on the back of the plug. So that's really about it. I've just got one or two little things to finish the project off, to get some rubber feet or something to make it sit on the bench quite nice. But yeah, you know, here it all is, all done up in its box. It looks a bit odd, doesn't it? All these things sticking out the side. I mean, you'd wonder, wouldn't you, if you didn't know what it was. It does look a bit strange, but it does protect everything. All the radio and everything is sort of quite nicely protected under that lid, and once you know it's in the back of the car, it's quite easy to sort of handle. Moving around to the back, I did use the P-Touch machine at work and just sort of did a few little labels here and there. You know, I know what everything is, but just makes that a little bit easier to sort of recognise, you know, the input and the output and the audio input. So yeah, I think, you know, overall I'm quite pleased with it. It's sort of quite a nice strong latch here. I just undo that and just slide the front cover off, and there's all of the gubbins, if you like. Yeah, it looks fairly neat. I mean, obviously it's home build, isn't it? It does look a bit sort of odd with the different colours and things, but yeah, you know, overall I'm sort of quite pleased, I think, how it's come out. So just got to move on now and just do some testing on that little 2 meter 70cm radio. Make sure that that new antenna mount is working as well as it should.
Okay, time now for a test. So first test I'm going to do will just be on commercial radio, and I've tuned in the little 70cm radio there. I've tuned that into LBC 97.3. I'm about 15 miles from central London, so that's always a good signal to find out if that comes through clear, because sometimes we can't always get that clear in the car. So I've put on the high band antenna, which is really a dual band antenna, depending what actual band I want to use. And I've also got the PMR SMA connector there, the PMR antenna, which is the same that goes on Sean's radio on the Bofang. So right, let's switch it on.
Young people into work. 0345 6060 973 is the number. Here's where I'm going to surprise you. I like to be counterintuitive. I'm not against
So it doesn't sound too bad.
Has proposed, as long as it doesn't involve packing off the young people to the hills somewhere for a literal boot camp. But if the state is prepared to invest in a 3-week period.
So what we got here is when this is scanning the PMR bands, and when I've got another radio sort of on the line in, which will be probably the 10-meter radio. This one, when I'm down at the park site and places, this will just be scanning the PMR bands. So for that, I'll have that switched on this monitor speaker,
Emails that people send in,
which is the
that despite the huge amounts of money we spend on education,
so that's the one on the side there, and that's controlled individually by this.
and the communication.
So I can turn that just up and down on that. And then we have the audio amp with the sort of bass and treble control, which gives me a little bit of tone control. And then that's switched. The switching is done via this switch. We're going to switch on to the input coming in, which will be the 10-meter radio, or switch on the input coming, or the input from the 70cm radio there. So that switches on to that.
can be greatly improved. The ability, the confidence of young people to sit opposite an employer and make the best case for themselves can be greatly improved. But why do we need to call it a boot camp? Why do we need to threaten?
So obviously I've got quite a degree there, a lot more volume, which is is quite good for my sort of hearing difficulties. So I think that's about it for this video, and I think overall I'm very pleased how things have sort of come out. It's got everything nice and neat, and everything's compact into one box that I can just put in the back of the car when I go on holiday, and that's going to be great. And then later on when I get the 10-meter radio, and I can then patch through the tuner there and the swell, fantastic. Just be able to use that. And I think that just about sort of brings this one to a close. What I should be doing is I'll be doing some testing with Sean's radio there. I'll be going out and doing a little bit like I did with the emergency radio. Do you remember that one? We're doing a little bit of testing and reporting back, see how sort of how far this thing will actually transmit and receive. Hopefully that will go okay. So that'll be a final sort of third video. Well, thanks for sticking with these two sort of videos. I hope they've been interesting. I will be doing another project sort of very soon, shortly after this one. But it's not going to be radio based. I'm going to have a little break from radio construction for a little while. It's going to be something entirely different. It does unfortunately involve more wood. I'm trying to get away from woodwork. I'm crap at it. But it does involve a little bit of cutting of wood and things. So what I'll do is I'll discuss that maybe later on another video. But I might put up a short series, how that goes and how I go along. But for now, as always, I'd like to say thanks for sticking with it. A few things. A couple of people that have commented to help me out. Obviously Sean, thanks Sean for your comments and advice, and Simon and Charlie Oscar and Andy, of course, in Canada. All been very helpful and very positive, and I always appreciate comments and feedback, because that's what it's all about. So thanks guys. If I've forgotten anyone, because I know a few other people did comment, you have to excuse me. I'm terrible at trying to remember names and things, so please excuse me. But thanks to the people that have commented on these two videos, and like I say, there'll be a third one. There'll be a testing video later on, but as for now, I'll bring this one to a close. Thanks for watching. As always, take care, and I'll see you later. Bye bye now.